I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 3, and we'll focus on verses 3 through 7. John went into all the vicinity of the Jordan, preaching an immersion of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, as it is written in the book of the words of the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah says this, "A voice of one crying out, in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. Make his paths straight. Every valley will be filled, and every mountain and hill will be made low. The crooked will become straight, and the rough ways smooth, and everyone will see the salvation of God." And then he said to the crowds who came out to be immersed by him, "Brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the coming wrath?" You see, the content of today's passage could be the source of many books. And I want to focus on just a few observations and parallel scriptures from the Psalms and the prophets. First off, John was not preaching salvation by baptism. He was simply stating the obvious, which is, if you will humbly turn from your sin, well, the Lord will forgive you. John chose immersion as a way for people to demonstrate how they could publicly wash away outward signs of sin, and that was supposed to be an internal change, which he is now demonstrating through an external act of just washing. And in Jewish culture, there's two types of purposes for immersion. One is when a Gentile converts to Judaism. And the second is when a person makes themselves ritually clean in order to worship the Lord. John's immersion was an entirely new concept, although in a sense it was kind of an amalgamation of the two. And while John is fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy directly, well, the concept of repentance coming before Messiah is also mentioned in the Psalms. It says this in Psalm 85, verse 13, that righteousness will go before him to prepare the way for his steps. Righteousness makes a shepherd's job so much easier when the sheep are willing to follow. And I recommend that you read that Psalm 85 in its entirety because its messianic message is so profound. The whole idea of the brood of vipers has always intrigued me. You big ball of snakes. When I read through Jeremiah, I remember seeing a section in chapter 8 titled God's People Unrepentant. And it immediately made me think of John the Baptist's message of repentance. At the end of the passage was this statement. He says, "Indeed, I am about to send snakes among you, poisonous vipers that cannot be charmed, and they will bite you. This is the Lord's declaration." Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 17. So in the short term, Jeremiah was speaking of a conquering enemy to come because of the people's unrepentance to the Lord. But in the greater prophetic reach, the combination of repentance and vipers is uncanny. And what strikes me, that is no pun intended, I know it sounds like a dad joke. What strikes me is how well documented are the Lord's fulfillment of His prophecies. But so few people will heed His prophecies which are yet to be fulfilled. Here's one. Jesus said, "I've gone to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare that place, surely I will come back and receive you to myself so that you can be there with me also." And that's a hope worth waiting for. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at www.groundworksministries.com.